Welcome and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. Today's webinar is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Now I'd like to turn the call over to your host, Crystal Jimerson from the U.S. Census Bureau. Crystal, you may begin.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on how to make a data-driven business plan using Census Bureau data. My name is Crystal Jimerson, and I'm a data dissemination specialist here at the U.S. Census Bureau. I want to thank you for joining us today for the It's All in the Tools webinar series. This new series was created by the Census Academy team here at the Census Bureau. You can register for any of the workshop webinars by accessing census.gov. We will post the workshops monthly for early registration. Just visit census.gov/academy. Please note the seating is limited, first come, first served basis. We think these hands-on exercise-based workshops will be a valuable opportunity for you to learn from our experts about how to access the Census Bureau data, tools, and resources. If you wish to follow along, take a moment now to open an additional browser to participate in the exercises. Before I introduce today's speaker, let's go over a few important housekeeping rules. As mentioned earlier, this webinar is being recorded. For your convenience, it will be uploaded to our Census Academy site with all supplemental materials relating to the webinar. In terms of how to ask questions during the webinar, you can submit your written questions using the Q&A panel, which is at the bottom, center, or right side of your WebEx screen. Please take a moment to locate that now. Once you've found the Q&A panel, make sure you choose All Panelists from the drop-down menu. This will ensure we see your question. Don't send your question to an individual panelist. Also, we ask that you do not include any personal or business identifiable information with your questions. Now let's talk about the chat panel. Look for that on your screen now. It's probably right next to the Q&A panel. Definitely keep that chat panel open also, because this is where we will provide key links and other resources. Keep in mind, you won't be able to respond to the chat. Chat is just for us to send you links and other resources. In the chat box, we will be sharing throughout the webinar the link to our evaluation. We are very interested in hearing from you how we are doing. My colleague, Stacy McNeil, will be monitoring the Q&A panel. As time allows, we will answer your questions directly through the Q&A panel, or we will share your question with the presenter to respond to throughout the workshop. If we don't get to all questions with a response during the webinar, we will post the questions and responses with the webinar materials on the census.gov/academy site within 30 business days. Again, as mentioned before, near the end of the webinar, we'll put into the chat a link to our evaluation so you can tell us how we did today. We hope you'll take the time to complete, as we are always looking for ways to improve our training. As you know, we are in a virtual environment and sometimes technical difficulties might occur. If you are having issues, try a different browser such as Chrome, or consider logging out and coming back into the session. If you are having audio issues, try selecting the computer audio or calling into the webinar via phone. Now, I would like to introduce our speaker, Adam Grundy. Thanks again for being here today. Adam, you may begin.
Thank you so much for that great introduction, Crystal. My name is Adam Grundy, as Crystal mentioned, and I am in the Data Dissemination and Training branch of the U.S. Census Bureau. I'm kind of an outreach specialist, so to speak, and I'm becoming more of a generalist about our econ data. So let's get started. So first of all, before we get into the meat of today's presentation, I want to provide a little bit of a background about census.gov/academy. We can bring our data experts to you. So really, you can request free trainings. You can look at our data gems that are online and get access to all of our great courses that have already been recorded. You can also interact with instructors like myself through our webinars, through different workshops like this one. So a little bit about myself. Like I mentioned, I'm an outreach specialist in the CLMSO area, or Customer Liaisons Management and for CLMSO. And I'm becoming more of a generalist of econ data. But like I said, what that means is I'm going to use a lot of plain language today. I'm going to talk about, instead of full service restaurants, I'm going to talk about, just restaurants in general. Or instead of limited service restaurants, this will be just fast food. I'll also use very few acronyms in my presentation because I want to really talk to you guys about the importance of our business data. I've written several stories for the American Accounts series, and really all these American Accounts stories are ways we can tell stories with our data. So before we get too far into the workshop, let me give you a brief background about our census business data by looking at some of the core objectives for today's workshop. You're going to learn about useful surveys and programs, and understanding the difference between what a survey is and what a program is. I'm going to give you an understanding of census geography, because if you go down to more specific geographic levels, you'll see that less data is available. So I'll talk about best practices for each of those. We're also going to use census data tools like Census Business Builder, or CBB, and also Data.census.gov. We're going to participate in all exercises. This is where your guys' participation comes in handy. And then lastly, we'll do a question and answer session at the very end. And I look forward to your questions. So please utilize the chat feature as we go throughout the presentation so we can have a good bank of questions by the time we get to the end. So this is just an overview of our outline for today. I'm going to provide a brief background on census business data. I'm going to do a demo about Census Business Builder. We're going to talk about the specific steps you would need to do in order to make a data-driven business plan. And we're going to navigate different census data tools like Data.census.gov. In our live demos for today, I'm going to guide you through how you can use Census Business Builder version 5.0, which has replaced the Small Business Edition and Regional Analyst Edition, or two different editions of Census Business Builder, into one intuitive data tool. And I'm going to teach you how to use Data.census.gov to get to the right data that you need. So first of all, before we get too far into our presentation, I want to learn a little bit about your interests and your comfortability with census data. So for the first question, and we're going to open up the polling in just a moment, we're going to ask how often, do you use business data retrieved from census.gov? Or how do you use business data retrieved from census.gov? So please take a moment to answer your question. Give you about 10 more seconds to complete the poll before we go on to the next one. All right, so it looks like the majority of us have used business data for research purposes, with second place about decision making. So that's good to know for this audience. The second question I'm going to ask you is, how often do you search for business data? And again, the answers are daily, 1 to 4 times per week, 1 to 3 times per month, periodically throughout the year, or once per year or less. And again, you have about 30 more seconds to complete the poll before we move on to our third and final poll question. All right, so it looks like most people have answered that they search for census business data periodically throughout the year, or once per year or less. So hopefully we can change that after today's presentation too. The last poll question is, what is your experience level with the data tool Census Business Builder? Are you a beginner, a novice user, moderate user, proficient, or an expert? Go ahead and take a moment to complete this poll question, please. Give you about 20 more seconds to complete the final question before we get into the, like I said, the meat of our presentation today. All right, so it looks like the majority of us are beginners with Census Business Builder, so I'll make sure I go and adapt my pacing to make sure that is to the best of your ability to learn Census Business Builder today. And also we have a couple novice users, a few moderate users, and a few proficient, and nobody has claimed themselves as an expert, so that's okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the rest of the presentation here. All right, so first of all, I'm going to give you a brief background about census business data and really just talk about the scope and structure of economic data. On this slide, we're talking about Census Bureau economic programs and surveys. Okay, at the top of the pyramid, you see our high frequency surveys. These are biweekly or weekly data, such as the Small Business Pulse Survey, which is one of our experimental data products, but it comes out very frequently or biweekly. Also, at the next part of our pyramid, we have monthly and quarterly surveys. These are like things like the economic indicators that you usually hear about in the news, but they have smaller sample sizes, so they're usually only at the national level for geography. This would be things such as the monthly retail trade survey and M3 as different examples. The annual surveys, such as the annual retail trade survey or annual survey of manufacturers, are a benchmark to what you see at the monthly, like our manufacturing M3 survey. Also, at the next part of the pyramid, we have our censuses. These would be occurring in years ending in 2 and 7 for the last digit of the year. And these have the most comprehensive data available. This would be things like the Census of Governments or the Economic Census. And the Economic Census, you'll hear me talking about quite a bit in just a few moments, because we are currently collecting data for the 2022 Economic Census. And at the bottom of the pyramid, we have data from our business register. And that really helps us supplement or produce our economic products. All right, before we get too far into what we're talking about for our business data, it's important for you to understand NAICS, or North American Industry Classification System. It's our primary data dimension. Really is how we organize a lot of the different data that you see on census.gov. I'll be talking a little bit about the difference between an establishment or a single physical location versus a firm, where you could have multiple different companies spread out under the same firm. I'll be looking at our collection and tabulation levels, understanding the difference between employers and non-employers. An employer will have people with paid employees, whereas a non-employer is somebody that has no paid employees. They basically the mom and pop businesses that are out there. Most programs cover only employer businesses, so a lot of the data you'll see today are at the employer establishment level. Non-employers are self-employed individuals, like I mentioned, and U.S. Code Title 13 and 26 protects the business privacy and confidentiality to make sure that we can actually produce the data that you see in today's presentation. On the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see our NAICS hierarchy. As you add more digits to the NAICS code, you go to a more specific level. So for example, at the 2-digit level or sector level, we have just a broad description of information. If you go all the way down to the U.S. industry or 6-digit code, you have radio stations at 515, 112. So where does all these great data come from? It comes from the Census Bureau, and it also comes from our Economic Directorate. We have great programs such as County Business Patterns, which covers employer businesses in the United States. I'll be guiding you through quite a lot of data from them. Non-employer statistics, which covers non-employer businesses or self-employed persons in the United States. The annual business survey covers employer businesses in the United States and also includes our great business owner data. This would be things such as race, ethnicity, veteran status, and much more from the annual business survey. And lastly, like I mentioned, towards the bottom of our pyramid, we have the economic census, which is the official 5-year measure of American businesses, providing comprehensive statistics at the national, state, and local levels. And again, that data collection has just started for the 2022 economic census, I should say. All right, county business patterns. This covers employer businesses in the United States. It's published on an annual basis, which makes it one of our popular programs. The 2021 data, which is scheduled for release in 2023, but the first look or data at the national and sector level has already been released for the 2021 county business patterns. When we have full releases of county business patterns, you'll find statistics on establishments, employment, annual payroll for nearly every 2 through 6-digit NAICS code. And again, that's what makes it so popular. The data are published in the national, state, metro, county, congressional district, which is unique for county business patterns, and also zip code levels. The county business patterns also covers the 5 U.S. territories. The main website is located at the bottom of your screen. And also on the left-hand side is a quick little infographic that we do to showcase different data elements. For example, employment snapshots for Texas, or for healthcare and social assistance, how many people they employ in the United States. I mentioned a lot about non-employers before, so let's talk about what non-employer statistics is. It's an annual program, and with the 2020 data scheduled for release later in 2023, this year. This includes statistics on the number of firms and revenue for most 2 through 6-digit NAICS codes. So did you know that about 3/4 of all small businesses are non-employers? So it shows what the importance of having both sides of the coin. The county business patterns combined with non-employer statistics gives you a better better way to capture the full scope of the economic landscape. And data are shown by revenue size of the firm and by legal form of organization. The website is over here on the right-hand side of your screen. And this graphic that we see on the computer screen showcases about the gig economy, people that work possibly more than one job in order to make ends meet, or to just earn a little bit more spending money. So you see things like taxi and limousine services, landscaping services, child daycare services. Those are some of our typical non-employers. All right, so now it's your turn. Before I get into this exercise that you see on your screen here today, I'm going to give you a different example using Data.census.gov. So I'm going to back out of the presentation for a moment, open up my browser to Data.census.gov, which is located right here. So let's use an example here. The first exercise asked us, using Data.census.gov, what is the total number of U.S. establishments for NAICS 333-111, or farm machinery and equipment manufacturing? Okay, so since this is the first exercise, I'll do this one with you. And again, I'm going to type in my NAICS code first. So in the search bar of your browser, from Data.census.gov, go to 333-111. You know you've selected it correctly when you see something populate at the top of your screen. farm machinery and equipment manufacturing. Go ahead and click on that. So again, we're looking for county business patterns data. So I'm going to look and scroll down until I see my tables. So I'm going to select tables. First one we see up here is for annual survey of manufacturers. I'm not going to use that one quite yet. I'm going to use a 2020 county business pattern. So I can see CB 2000 CBP. I'm going to select that. All right, if I'm looking for the total number of establishments for United States level for farm machinery and equipment manufacturing, I'm going to scroll over to where I make sure I'm on national level, United States. I have the right NAICS code, all establishments, the year is 2020. And again, the answer to my first question is right here, 1,103 US establishments for that particular NAICS code of farm machinery and equipment manufacturing. Okay. The second question, we'll bring it back up. It says, using Data.census.gov, what is the total number of non-employer firms in 2019 in all sectors for the geography of El Dorado County, California? And again, since it's the first exercise, I'll do a lot of this with you. So I'm going to back out to Data.census.gov by clicking on that Census Bureau logo. And I'm going to type in my geography this time, El Dorado County, California. And you see it starts to populate as you type in more characters on that search bar. I'm going to select El Dorado County, California. Okay, what it's doing is populating all the different data elements that would be from different surveys and programs that are available. I'm going to click the tab that says Tables. And now I'm going to look for non-employers. Not on the first one, so I'm going to go to the second one. Second one, so I'm going to go to the third one. So again, this is always by the most current data populating first. So if I go to about the fifth one over, start to get to our business data. Not quite yet. All right, so if I notice that I'm having trouble finding the data I'm looking for, I can also look at my filters here. So I'm going to go to surveys by clicking on the left-hand side. I'm going to go to my economic surveys and non-employer statistics. Now, this will make it much easier for me to find the data that I'm looking for. So looking back to our question, we're looking for the total number of non-employers in all sectors. So total for all sectors, NAICS 00. And our answer can be found right here. Total number of non-employer firms is 17,425. Okay. So that's a little bit of a demo of Data.census.gov, but we'll also get another opportunity to use it in our next exercise. All right, going back to our surveys. The annual business survey covers employer businesses in the United States. It's published on an annual basis, as the name allows for. The 2021 data are scheduled for release in 2023, so the most current data is for the calendar year 2020. This includes the statistics on the number of firms, employment, annual payroll, sales, shipments, receipts, revenue for nearly every 2 through 6 digit NAICS code. But really what makes the ABS or annual business survey so unique is it also shows data from our business owner's perspective, such as race, ethnicity, gender, veteran status of the business owner, among much more. You can get data from the annual business survey by clicking on the link in the slide deck. All right, so now as we move further down the pyramid, we have our economic census. This is conducted every 5 years, and years ending in 2 and 7. So again, the 2022 economic census data collection has already started. It covers over 19 economic sectors, 950 NAICS industries, and over 21,000 geographic areas. So it really is a true census. Data includes the number of establishments, products, revenue, employment, and much, much more. Current economic census is collected in 2023, and all these businesses that have been selected to participate in the economic census are reporting their 2022 year-end numbers. It's completely 100% electronic, and then the response is mandatory. So this is a little bit of the economic census at a glance, where we've come from and where we're going. In October 2022, the North American Industry Classification System classification card was mailed out. In January, you can see the economic census was mailed out of this year. March 15th, coming up of this year, response is due. And then the first release of economic census data, which is very exciting, is going to be in March 2024. And those data releases will continue on a flow basis until March of 2026. A little bit about what's new for the economic census in 2022. We'll have new machine learning searches in the data collection instruments, the ability to search for NAICS code or North American Product Classification System, NAPS codes, product services, and also some new topics. We'll also see some business technology data such as 3D printing and also kiosk data. Also see different services such as telemedicine included in the 2022 economic census. All right, so now I've given you a brief overview about our business data. Let's talk about how you would actually form a data-driven business plan. I'm going to outline specific steps that would help you in starting a business or even maintaining the business success. So this is a basic flow chart about how you can create a business plan. Again, just very bare bones. First of all, ideation. You're coming up with a great idea, hopefully, for a business, or you see a need for a specific business in a geographical area. Step 2 is conducting your market research. That's what I'm going to be going through quite a bit during today's presentation. You're going to look at your competitors. How much do you have to employ your employees? How much do you have to pay your employees, I should say? The cost of operations, things like that, to keep your business up and running. You can use Census Business Builder, which is one of our main data tools to help you in forming a business plan. And I'll also showcase Data.census.gov, which I showed just a moment ago. You can also use Census Business Builder's report option, which I'll demo in just a moment. And the final step is opening. So once you get to celebrate the opening of your business, these are the tools you would need in order to stay open and be successful in your business. So let's talk a little bit about step 1 in more detail. After you have your great idea, think about what you would need to do in order to create that business plan. Will it be a business that caters to other businesses or B2B? Or will it be a business that caters to the general public, business to customers? So you got to think about, if you're on a business-to-business plan, who are your customers? Who are your competitors? What are the other competing businesses that are similar to the business that you're trying to open? All these different types of things would be important for you to kind of mull over before you, or as you're creating your business plan. Also, who are my suppliers? Complementary businesses, things that would be able to help you continue to make that business thrive and be successful. Oops, sorry, I'm too far. So this is one example about creating a business plan. So let's say you want to open up an automobile parts and accessory store. And again, the NAICS code is right there on your screen. Is it going to be business to business? Probably not. Is it going to be business to customer? Yes, it will be. My customers primarily will be shade tree mechanics who live within 20 miles of my business. Okay, so that's just one of the things you can consider as you're opening up your business. The competitors will be other auto parts in the store. I will teach you how to, in order to drill down to different geographic levels, to figure out what other businesses are on there. Obviously, we can't disclose the name of individual businesses because of Title 13, but we can tell you the number of businesses that are in a certain geographic area. The suppliers are auto parts wholesalers. These are different types of things to keep your business up and running. And complementary businesses include auto repair facilities. And those are all the different types of things you would service to those types of customers. All right. So the first data tool I'm going to demo for you guys today, actually the second one, because I already did Data.census.gov, but is Census Business Builder version 5.0. The previous versions of Census Business Builder, which you may have been familiar with, included 2 different versions, Small Business Edition and Regional Analyst Edition. This has been simplified into one comprehensive version on the data tool, version 5.0. Let's take a little bit of a look about data in action. Let's say I was opening up a small business or a bike shop near Portland, Oregon. Portland is located on this little orange dot right here. And let's say I wanted to open a bike shop near that location. I always recommend when you're using Census Business Builder to start at the county level. So we have Multnomah County, Oregon. Okay, you see county is selected here, and I'm doing sporting goods stores. So it's a good way to kind of get the juices flowing with the different types of businesses that would be similar to yours for opening a bike shop. I'm going to select the first variable of all employer establishments, total, the total number of non-employer firms, because again, I told you about almost 3/4 of all small businesses are non-employers. We want to factor in that part of the equation. So after I've selected those different variables, and I'll guide you through this in just a moment with the demo, you can see 84 of them are employer establishments for sporting goods stores in this county. 46 are non-employers. Okay, so it tells you a little bit about the business landscape. It's going to be a little bit of a competition in this type of geography. The median household income is $71,000. 92% have a high school degree or higher, so a well-educated area. 84 of these are employer establishments, and the home ownership rate is 54%. Again, these are all the different factors you can kind of put together in order to make the best data-driven business decision for your prospective business. All right, so I'm going to do a live demo on obtaining relevant business data. Okay, this is the URL that you're going to use for today's demo. Okay, so first of all, if you just want to jot down this URL, cbb.census.gov/cbb, this will take you directly to the data tool. So I'm going to back out of the presentation and give you a brief demo about Census Business Builder. So again, the URL is cbb.census.gov. Okay, one of the first things you'll notice on Census Business Builder's landing page is it gives a brief description about what it is, a suite of services, provide demographic and economic data from the Census Bureau. And it's really tailored to give you easy to use data on a map basis. You can take a tour if you're, like a lot of you mentioned on the poll, you're beginners to Census Business Builder, or if you haven't used version 5.0 that merges the two together, please make sure that you do this take a tour option in order to best start your search. Okay, but since I'm pretty proficient in Census Business Builder, I'm going to close this for a moment, and I'm going to give you a different example about something we could do for Census Business Builder. Let's say I'm interested in opening up a restaurant. Again, I'm using plain language. I don't need to know the NAICS code, or let's say I don't even know the NAICS code. I can type in restaurant. You'll see a couple different ones that come up. We have restaurant construction, furniture type restaurant manufacturing, not quite, but let's say we want to do full service restaurants and other eating places. So I'm going to select restaurants and other eating places. Next, I'm going to choose my first variable. I'm going to go to business annual. Make sure that the secondary category is focused on employers. And I'm going to click all employer establishments. You can see the map behind it is starting to change. Okay. This right now, I'm at the geography of all the complete US right now. Now I'm going to select then my next one, business annual, non-employers, secondary category, and non-employer firms. Okay. All right, now let's go to a geographic location. If I want to just do something that I know well, I'm going to go to where I live, which is Montgomery County, Maryland. I can back out of Montgomery, look for Montgomery County. There's a couple of different ones for different states, and go to Montgomery County, Maryland. What this is doing is repopulating the data for all the different geographies that we have for this particular area. So after the gray map turns to color, that means that it's done this correctly. So first of all, the employer establishments we see 1,645. And again, we check our NAICS code, that's restaurants and other eating places. However, there's 410 non-employers. These are the people that don't have any paid employees. So these are maybe the food trucks, things like that would be classified under this types of NAICS code. all these different things you can see over here that have the little pencil next to them and the graph on the left, you can actually go ahead and manipulate that data. So if let's say I didn't want to have median household income, let's say I want to look at some of my consumer spending data. Okay, how much are people spending on dining out would be important. Anytime you see an arrow next to it, means you can drill down. How much people are spending out on breakfast, lunch, dinner, depending on the type of cuisine and the type of restaurant that you want to open. All these different types of consumer spending data would be important. But for now, I'm just going to do consumer expenditures on just dining out in general for all types of times of the day. If I want to drill down, again, I can go to consumer residence, socioeconomic characteristics, consumer spending, I should say, and dining out, and let's say how much people spend on dinner. You can see that's repopulated to $3.1 thousand per year. Okay, that's a lot of money being spent on dining out in Montgomery County, Maryland. Okay, let's say I like the demographics that I see in this county, and I want to go ahead and open my business for Census using Census Business Builder to power that data search. I'm going to click Create Report. The way you can get to that is by going to the bottom left and clicking on Create Report. What this is doing is calculating all the different data for Montgomery County, Maryland. And this is for restaurants and other eating places. And I'm going to take a look about all the different business comparisons that I can look for here. So just to give you a brief overview of what's in this report, you can see a business summary, other places that will be similar to that, business comparisons, other businesses that would be similar to yours, and also the consumer spending data that I talked a little bit about in one of the variables that I selected. On the left-hand side is a new thing that we put in Census Business Builder data tool, is you can jump right to a section. So I'm going to go right to the business summary. I'm curious about that. This tells us about the number of employer establishments. And again, anytime you see an arrow down there, it means you can drill down. Establishments with less than 5 employees. This would be particularly important in order for you to figure out just how big of a business you want to do. If it's a restaurant and other eating places, you can see the majority have less than 5 employees. So it's kind of interesting to think about. And again, if you don't want to drill down, you can click that arrow just again. How much you average employment per employer, population per employer, and the average payroll per employee in this industry. All these different types of things. Now, business revenue. Is your business going to be successful? This is the average revenue per employer in thousands of dollars. Average revenue per employee. And total revenue of employers in thousands of dollars as well. As I scroll down, I can also see our non-employers, 410 in this particular county for restaurants and other eating places. Total number of non-employers and employers. This is a new type of thing that we added in to Census Business Builder because people want to get the full landscape of the economic landscape, I should say. So really, they wanted to figure out how many employers were in there and also how many non-employers, and just combine them. So that's the 2,096 you see right there. As I continue to scroll down, you can see quarterly workforce data was not available at the county level, so that's one of the reasons why it's not shown there. Quarterly business data, we do have some of that in there. Building permits, so if you wanted to actually figure out a building location or even start a new building in order to form your restaurant, these are the types of data that you'd be interested in. Business totals. This is another powerful way of looking at restaurants by taking a look at all sectors, just how many businesses are out there. So who would be going to the restaurants, maybe people on lunch break, things like that. And then accommodation and food services. These are all the like businesses that would be similar to a restaurant or other eating places. As we continue to scroll down, you can see a little bit more about the average employment per employer, how much people are spending on each of these different categories or sectors of the economy. And then the business ownership. You would be interested to know how many are minorities, possibly. Percent minority owned employer firms is 30% for all sectors in this particular county. 7% are Hispanic owned. employer firms. So all this great data can be used in your actual business plan. And then lastly, I talked about consumer spending, how we can figure out how much people are spending on dining out, how much people spend on entertainment or food consumed at home, or all the different types of data that you can kind of crunch together in order to make the best informed decision about whether or not it's the best place to open up your business. So I'm going to back into the presentation, and I'm going to let you guys do an exercise in Census Business Builder. So using that data tool that I just showed you, which again is cbb.census.gov, can you find the difference in the number of employer establishments and non-employer firms for full service restaurants? So different than the NAICS code I demoed before, in the geography of Montgomery County, Maryland. Okay, so same geography, but again, I want you to find the number of employer establishments, number of non-employer firms, and then a quick subtraction of the difference. So I'll give you about 2 minutes to do that, and then we'll work on it together. I'm just going to leave this slide bigger so you guys can see that. If you happen to finish early, go ahead and if you need to put anything in the chat for questions, I'll address them at the end of the presentation. Give me about another minute. All right, let's go ahead and get started with this exercise. So finding the difference in the number of employer establishments and non-employer firms for this geography and NAICS level. So I'm going to go back to Census Business Builder. I'm going to start from the beginning. Location is Montgomery County, Maryland. And my industry that we're going to look for is for 722511, full service restaurants. First thing I'm going to do is choose my variable, business annual, employers, and then select the little radio button for all employer establishments. So the first answer that you should have came up with is 619. That's the employer establishment's number. Second part of the answer is non-employers. So I'm going to go to business annual again, annual program, non-employers, and select non-employer firms. Okay, so the answer to the second part of your question is 180 non-employer firms that are full service restaurants. Now the difference, if we subtract 619 minus 180, we get 439. And just for fun, let's say if I wanted to find the total of 619 plus 180, I can select my button over here, go to business annual, key ratios. We have employers, non-employers, now key ratios, and do total number of employers and non-employers. That would give us 806. You can see the first box that we did here. Okay. All right. Another exercise here. If you're interested in opening a new restaurant in Franklin County, Ohio, let's say that's the scenario, using Census Business Builder, what features of the report would be helpful in determining if this is the best geography to open up a restaurant? Okay, And the hint down here is looking at the sections called business comparison and consumer spending. Okay. Again, I'll just back out just for a moment. Start at the beginning by clicking on the Census Business Builder logo. We're looking at Franklin County. Oops. Sometimes if you go too far into the text, it doesn't quite work. So I'm going to go Franklin County, Ohio. Will I find it? Select that. And again, we're looking for opening up a restaurant. So I'm going to go to here. I'm going to type in restaurant. Until I get to full service restaurants. And the question it's asking is, what if using Census Business Builder, what features of the report would be helpful in determining if this geography is the best one to open up a location? So again, the functionality that we want to look for is our report button. So I'm going to click report. And we're going to look at our business comparison. How much people are spending on different types of sectors, such as accommodation and food services. This is all the great data that you would want to look for Franklin County, Ohio. Okay. And you know you're looking at the right geography because it's always at the top left of your screen. And you also know the industry that you're looking at because it's also printed on the report too. Just a quick note that if you like the report option, you can also click the download data button. It's available as CSV, Excel, or PDF files. We always recommend that people do a PDF if they plan to print it out. It looks much cleaner on your screen and also on the paper itself. Each of these charts that you see on the report, if you like the look of number of establishments, location quotient, you can click the little button next to it that says the graph. You can see it now populates onto the report, the graph that you want to select for that type of variable. Okay. So again, really the business comparison is what you're looking for this type of exercise. All right. So now we're getting low on time. So I'm going to go to the next part for understanding census geography. I'm going to show you a graphic / chart of geographic levels with different surveys, programs, and other censuses available. All right, so this is just a quick spreadsheet that we have available for our outreach specialists like myself. And we're taking a look at all the different levels of geography. The way this chart works is you take a look at the survey, program, or census, or the acronym at the top. But again, I try to stay away from acronyms because I know it's too easy to get bogged down with those, so they've all been spelled out over here. So let's go through a couple of different examples and see how this chart will work. The first one is Annual Business Survey, ABS over here, okay? This is available at the national, state, metro area, county, and place levels, okay? Let's look at the ASM, or the Annual Survey of Manufacturers. This is available at the national and state level, okay? So two different levels of geography that you see there. Its counterpart, or the Manufacturing Survey, of the manufacturer's shipments, inventories, and orders, or M3, is located right over here, and that's available at the national level. That's almost always the case for our economic indicators. And then for county business patterns, like I said, one of our popular annual programs. This is available at the national, state, metro area, county, zip code, and it says also other. In this case, the other was congressional district, like I mentioned before in that slide about county business patterns. And then you can see things like our censuses, like the economic census, and economic census of island areas. The PR stands for Puerto Rico. So things like that. All right, one more exercise using Census Business Builder, and then I'll make sure that you guys can be experts with using that data tool. So using Census Business Builder, what happens to the map when you search for this NAICS and this geography? Go ahead and take a moment to do this in Census Business Builder. And again, that URL is cbb.census.gov. Give you about another minute or so to type in this NAICS and this geography before I show you what happens to the map. About 30 more seconds to queue up your map. All right, let's go to Census Business Builder again. And I'm going to start at the beginning. Okay. Our geography is Columbus City. Make sure I select the Columbus City, Ohio. See the map is repopulated. Okay. See a little bit what's going on with the map, but I want to go to my sector, my industry of 7211110 and make sure I select hotels except casino hotels and motels. Okay, if I go back to the map, you can see what's going on here. Okay, a lot of gray, right? Again, we always recommend that you start at the county level when we do a lot of your data comparisons and searches. And you can see pretty unique border that we have here for Columbus City, Ohio, that's outlined in black. Okay. Our legend on the right-hand side tells us what all the different data elements mean. And you can see we have a lot of data that's suppressed because it doesn't, most of our surveys and programs don't go down to the city or town level. So if I go back to county, by selecting county here, I see Columbus is right there in the middle. If I click once on that map, you can see most of my things are going to repopulate in color again. So the point of that exercise is really just for you to really drill down to the county level. Start at that one, and if you can always zoom into city and town and zip code and track level as you get into different comparisons with different businesses along those lines of thinking. All right. So back to the presentation. Live demo of Data.census.gov. Okay. I did the first one for you, so I want you to try this one. Using Data.census.gov, so that's your URL. What is the total value of shipments for NAICS 334111? And again, that industry is called electronic computer manufacturing, according to the 2021 Annual Survey of Manufacturers, or ASM. So take about a minute to do the first one. We'll work on that one together. Then you guys can try the second one, and we'll do that one together as well. Make sure we're all coming to the same answers. Okay, so I'm going to back out of the slide for just a moment. Go to Data.census.gov, which is this one up here. Again, if I want to clear my previous searches, I can just click on that Census Bureau logo. And usually what I do when I look for a specific industry is I type in that industry code first. So I can type in 334111, electronic computer manufacturing. And since we're looking at US totals, we don't have to select our geography here. You can see all the things that come up are economic surveys. I'm going to click that tables tab. Looking at ASM, or Annual Survey of Manufacturers. I want to make sure I'm looking at the year of 2021, and that is covered in this one, 2018 through 2021. The first question that we're looking for is, according to the Annual Survey of Manufacturers of 2021, what is the total value of shipments? And that would be this one here, sales, value shipments, or revenue. Again, I'm going to span this over because if you see the 3 dots next to anything, it means there's more detail to that type of description. So again, sales, value, shipments, or revenue, but this is in thousands of dollars. Okay, so if I look at the 2021 total, we see 8,878,933, or rounds to $8.9 billion for 2021. And now the second part of our question, you go back to the slide, was I'll just read it to you just to save time. What is the total U.S. costs of materials in 2019 according to the annual survey of manufacturers. Okay, so again, I want to make sure 2019 is the one I'm selecting. You click on it, it'll stay gray. You can go over until you find cost of materials. I keep scrolling over, clicking the right arrow until we find total cost of materials. There we go. So we see 6,394,880, and again, but this is in thousands of dollars, so that would be rounded to $6.4 billion for total cost of materials for this industry of electronic computer manufacturing in the United States. Okay. These are some select ways you can access our great Census Bureau data. This is in order of ease of use. So you see quick facts at the top would be very easy to use, gives you, like its name implies, very quick facts about people, places in our economy. My congressional district, we see our data tool down here. And again, the business data is made possible because of the county business patterns program that I talked about a lot today. My tribal area is another one. On the map for emergency management, we see over here on the right-hand side. Census Business Builder, I focus a lot on the newest edition, which is 5.0. We also have our application programming interface, or API, and of course, Data.census.gov. Again, it's always tricky to use for beginners, but again, we're here to help. If you have questions, you can now use the ask.census.gov, or I'll also put my contact information up there at the end of the presentation to make sure we address each of your questions related to not only Data.census.gov, but anything I talked about today. So if you take nothing else away from this workshop, these are the three things you want to keep in mind. First one, the importance of census geography. So as you go drill down to more specific levels, let's say you're going to city, town, or zip code, there's going to be a lot less data available at that level. Always start at the county level if you want to really hone in on looking at your business comparisons. The second question, what data tool is extremely helpful in forming a business plan? Data.census.gov has a lot of great data in it, but again, it's not that quite easy to form your business plan. You want to use Census Business Builder in order to use that report functionality in order to make sure that you're using the best use of your time and resources in order to make sure you're coming up with the best business plan you can in order to make sure your business gets either approved or either stays in business. And the last part is the structure and hierarchy of NAICS, or North American Industry Classification System. Again, as you add more digits to the NAICS, you get much more specific industry. So you take away digits, you get more broad. We saw the information one versus radio broadcasting. It's just one example. So like I said, I try to be in plain language as much as possible and stay away from acronyms, but here at the Census Bureau, we love our acronyms to death sometimes. So I also put this in the slide deck that is available on the website on the same training workshop page, all the different acronyms that I use today. So with that, I'll leave this context slide up and I will ask my colleague, Stacy, to see if we have any questions. So
yes,
thank you guys.
Yes, thank you, Adam. Great presentation. We do have several really good questions. So the first is, why is the info for the non-employer stats only available for 2019 and other information is more recent?
Sure, that's a good question. The non-employer statistics is done on an annual basis, but again, county business patterns was the most recent one is 2021. So I believe if you go to the non-employer statistics page, they have an explanation as to slight delay for their 2020 data. So there is a reason behind that, but again, I can't speak to the specifics of it. I just know that they're working through those issues and they're going to get the data out as quickly as possible and make sure it's at the same quality and standards that the Census Bureau has.
Great, thank you. How do you look up the NAICS code of an industry? And you may have covered that, but I thought it would be good to probably reinforce that.
Yeah, if we go to the main census.gov webpage, there's a spot where you can type in census.gov/NAICS. Okay. We have things on the 2022 NAICS manual, 2017 NAICS manual, or 2022. If I'm not sure what type of NAICS I'm looking for, and I don't feel like going through all the different pages of the NAICS manual, I can type in a keyword such as restaurant. Okay, and click go. 2017 NAICS definition will give me some examples about restaurant that has that keyword in there, such as restaurant construction, furniture, restaurant type manufacturing. And again, as we continue to scroll down to the actual food industries, those full service restaurants that we talked about today.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, is the consumer spending information sourced from the consumer or estimated from what is submitted by the employers?
Sure. So the consumer spending data is actually purchased from a company that worked on the data tool called Esri, ESRI. And we purchased that, and it comes from the point of purchase place. So we get that credit card data from the consumer expenditures that come directly from different customers throughout the country. So really, the point of sale where it occurs for that actual swipe is where we get that data from. So if you see a Montgomery County, Maryland, or if you're in Ohio, all the different data that comes from that is from the actual point of purchase. So that's a great question too.
Great, thank you. What would be a reason that a geographic area would not have data?
Okay, so some of our disclosure rules, we have to protect the individual businesses that live, or I guess are located in the certain geographies. So let's say I'm looking at the Census Business Builder map for the county of Montgomery County, Maryland. And I see there's 64 restaurants that it shows. This is just an example. 64 restaurants that it just says for Census Business Builder for restaurants. Okay. I can't really tell you what the individual businesses are. If I scroll down to city, town, or even zip code level, you're going to see less and less data available because we have to protect the confidentiality of those businesses that report to our surveys and programs. So really, it's important for you to understand that as you go to more specific levels of geography, you're not going to get the data you're looking for because we have to protect those businesses by law.
Okay, thank you. And a couple more, and these are specifically going to be Census Business Builder questions, so you might have to go back to the demo. So this person was asking about 10 of 3, if you can remember where you were. I know, I'm joking. In the lower left, when it gives stats, education level, or home ownership, are those stats for the whole geographic area, or is it related to the NAICS industry within that area?
Okay, so if I'm understanding their question correctly, they're looking at the bottom left over here.
I believe so, yes.
It is always for the industry that you select and the geography that you select, assuming that you have the clicked on the right geography. So you can tell me right here, it's in Franklin County, Ohio. And again, if my variable is selected for the right one, if I'm looking for business annuals, all employer establishments, see it repopulate over here. Again, that black outline tells you what geography you're looking at. If you're not sure if you've selected more than one geography, you can collapse the little legend over here, and you can take a look at making sure you're looking at the right geography. There is a way you can build your own region. You can look at region view, click edit region. And let's say I want to just add a different county to this. If I click on this, and I can even name it a different one. So I can call it Adams, I can type region. And I would click finish. Now you can see that a region report has come up. This would combine Columbus City, Franklin County, Ohio with Delaware County, Ohio. And it tells us, if I click on that report button, it's the 2 different ones. It says Adams region, and it tells us it's comprised of Delaware County, Ohio. And it should also be the one, maybe I didn't click finish, that's probably why. It only has Delaware County in it. So I'm going to click edit region, make sure this is selected too, and click finish and try that again. Now we can see both of them are in there. Okay, Delaware County and Franklin County, Ohio. And what it does is it combines the data for each of those 2 geographic levels, and that's for both of those counties combined. Great question.
Great, thank you. And at this point, we just have one more, and again, it's referring to the demo. Does it matter if we type in the geography in the blue part or in the upper left?
Okay, so let me see up here. So if you're just starting from the beginning, you can start with your geography here in this little blue banner right here. Or you can do the take a tour if you're really, really new to the Census Business Builder. I highly recommend trying that first. But again, usually with veteran users, they would either start at a location, and again, we always recommend starting at the county level. But if you click this out, you can also just go to your location here. So really, it doesn't matter. Some people just like to use that county level first when they go to their geographic levels. But again, it always goes back to your last search. You can see Columbus is still located here.
Great, thank you. At this point, there are no other questions. You covered them all. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. So let me put my context slide up again. Again, if you think of anything else while you're either creating your business plan or looking at the materials from this presentation, and you have questions for me that you would like me to answer, this is my contact information, my email, and my phone number. And I want to thank everyone for participating in the exercises today. Hopefully this was enlightening. And I look forward to the next one, the next time we get to talk about our great business data from the Census Bureau. Thank you. I'll turn it back over to our hosts and see if there's any last questions or anything else to wrap up.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Adam, for this excellent webinar. Before we conclude, I'd like to thank everyone who played a role in today's webinar. And also, of course, thank you to you, our audience, for spending your time with us this afternoon. Please take a moment to fill out the evaluation by following the link provided in the chat. Look out for the recording from this workshop on the Census Academy by visiting census.gov/academy. That brings us to a close. So we want to thank you again and hope you have a great afternoon.
That concludes today's conference. Thank you for participating. You may disconnect at this time.